Before I start this presentation off, I want you to think about, your favorite song, your favorite album. And maybe it came out as recent as, a couple years ago, or maybe you're old school and you like 70s rock or whatever that may be. But these tunes that we hung and sing 24/7 have more meaning behind them than just some catchy lyrics and a catchy beat. And I think that no matter what your music interest is, how the artist has cultivated it has been influenced by societal issues, historical events, and creative ideas. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jackson Weber, and I've always loved music for my entire life. And ever since I was a little baby, my mom would dance with me to Michael Jackson, and I loved playing musical instruments. I learned how to play the violin, and I was in the middle school band for all 4 years. But as I got into high school, I was really exposed to different types of music genres and artists that I never really listened to before. And this was from my peers and teammates in sports, and also through social media and through different streaming services like Spotify and YouTube. And I really loved all these songs that I started listening to. I loved the meanings and the artists the message that they portrayed in the songs. But as a young listener, I didn't really pick up on a lot of them. And so this is when I kind of decided to dive deeper into the rabbit hole, and I started researching these albums and these songs, and it really piqued my interest. And what I found that was true was that a lot of these modern artists had actually gained direct influence from older artists and cultural events and messages. So what I did was I decided to dedicate this project to more in-depth research so we can see how influential history, past and present, has created impactful music for us to listen to on a day-to-day basis. So I want to start my presentation off with the history of music. And this is kind of popular music that was in the 60s and the 70s. And we can see artists like Bob Dylan, Jimi Hendrix, and the Beatles, how they incorporated storytelling in their songs. And back then, the music was kind of focused on topics like the brain, drugs, and expanding the mind. And we can see the Beatles really encourage their fans to break the mold and kind of see things outside of the box with independence. And these music genres that were popular around this time were more like psychedelic rock and the blues. But now as we kind of shift more towards today's modern era, we can see that the popular genres are more like hip hop, pop, and rap. And unlike the songs back then, we can see them idolizing things like women, possessions, money, and many other things. Now, this kind of shows the shift in culture, and some of this music isn't really all that. But we can't discredit modern music artists like Common, Kendrick Lamar, Logic, Tyler the Creator, Alicia Keys, and more. And a lot of these artists talk about various topics, but one thing that they all have in common is they preach positivity, change, and talk about topics of social change and racial issues in their songs, which kind of transitions me to my next topic, which is talking about the importance of racial connection in music. And ever since the 30s, when Black artists were making music in clubs and restaurants, and when Billie Holiday released the song Strange Fruit in 1939, we've seen the connection between racial matters in music. And whether they knew it or not, they were actually paving the path to racial justice that plagued America ever since then. And so we can see this 30 years later with musical groups like the Supreme and the Jackson 5 that were bigger than ever. And they were backed by this label Motown, which also backed many prominent artists such as Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, Gladys Knight, and more. This music is still creating an impact as there are aspiring artists in modern music like Kendrick Lamar, who released his album To Pimp a Butterfly, Beyonce, who released Lemonade, and Childish Gambino, who released a very, very inspirational song called This Is America, which actually talks about gun violence and racial tensions that are still present in this modern day. Now, to kind of shift the topic, we can also see artists like Tyler the Creator and Frank Ocean, who have both released music pieces that are revolved around homosexuality. And being in the Black community, this has really opened up genres like hip hop and rap in this community to open up about subjects that weren't really seen acceptable in the past. And so then I'm going to kind of transition to artist Kendrick Lamar, who is a rapper that originated from the streets of Compton, California. And now he talks about how he wants to be in the music industry and he wants his voice to be heard. And he feels like that the people in the music industry are just in it to make a quick buck. And he feels like they aren't making a connection with the people. He really wants to be a role model and make music that people can relate to and live by. Quote from him, "I can sit up here and talk slick all day on record, but who's going to relate to it at the end of the day when they have to go back to this crazy world and feel like they don't love themselves enough to stay humble and, they commit suicide?" And his third album, studio album, To Pimp a Butterfly, he released a song, Mortal Man, which references leaders like Malcolm X, Nelson Mandela, and Martin Luther King Jr. And one commonality between all these leaders is that they stood for change. And even though they died early and they had their faults and controversies, they really stuck to their true messages and they really wanted their fans to listen. And this is what Kendrick asked his fans himself, specifically young Black Americans, if they will stay true to him and listen, as he presents a message of leadership and change like these leaders' fans did for them. Now, And these artists are very aware that these teenagers and young adults are our future and provide them with motivation and positive message to help provide a better society and future generation. Now, we can see that this is a very important topic, as another artist, Tyler the Creator, uses more than music to speak to his audience. He started clothing brands like Golf LaFleur and Golf Wang, and even made his own TV show and music carnival called Camp Flognaw that he's been running for 9 years straight. Now, this kind of all connects to how Tyler communicates to his fans using creativity. Quote, "To be a fan of Tyler isn't just to stream his catchiest songs. It's to immerse oneself in an ever-expanding, interconnected universe of his own eccentric construction." And his fans come to include both elders that he's long worshipped, like Pharrell Williams and Dave Chappelle, and a younger generation of funny, angry, irreverent kids who have come of age to looking up to him. Now, this shows really how connected he is to his fans and to his lifestyle and to his brand, his overall culture that he's made through his edgy personality and eye-catching music. Now, artists like this are very important because they really help support the change and creativity for the future of music and culture all around the world, and helps lead to a brighter future and inspires today's adolescents. And as a teenager, this music is very inspiring to me, and my passion for music is really undeniable. As an avid listener, I listen to all different types of music, but I've never actually been able to make music before. And so for this project, I decided to experiment with a music program called Cakewalk. But really, before I did this, I decided to talk to a teacher here at Bow High School, Mr. Watson. And from an early age, he's really had a huge passion for music, as his dad was a musician in Nashville with a record deal. And he was exposed to all different types of music with an emphasis on vocals and acoustic guitar, but he really loved music with a message. And he talked about being in the studio and having the opportunity to experiment in so many different ways. And this really inspired me and taught me how deep music can really be. And as soon as I downloaded the program for Cakewalk, there were so many knobs and buttons everywhere, and it really looked like the cockpit of an airplane, and it discouraged me a little. But as I started putting time and I slowly worked on it, my project, it really all started coming full circle. And I started gaining inspiration by listening to music that I've listened to day in, day out, every day of my life. And I began looking through plugins, and I wanted to use them and kind of put them into my songs. And I began sampling, which is a term used to describe when an artist uses a sound that another artist has produced. And really, my final project was I created these 3 songs, and they all are different genres. But being new, these songs really are nothing to write home about since I was just starting off. But I spent time being in the driver's seat to experience what a modern artist would really experience when making songs. And I felt like that it was more than enough for me to fully experience what this project was supposed to be about. And I learned that it took a lot more effort than what people accredit most artists to make good music. So as we can see over generations of music, there's really no doubt that there has been a direct connection from culture surrounding us and the music we listen to. This can be seen in many ways, from spreading messages about racial justice and politics to wealth, poverty, depression, and happiness. From the past to the present, culture and society has many effects on the ways we listen and interpret music. Now, before I leave, I want to end with a quote. "Songs are such powerful things. They can reassure, soothe, inspire, and educate us. And that's just for starters. Perhaps one reason for this is because they're performed by real people, human faults and all, which is why reading lyrics on a paper will never quite add up. Songs are always held a mirror to the world, reflecting the things that go on around us. And arguably, music changes society like no other platform." Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jackson. That was awesome. Nice work. Okay. Oh, good morning, Mr. Watson.
Good morning. Nice job. That was awesome. I had like literally 2 minutes to jump on, so I'm gonna go. But awesome job.
Thank you, Mr. Watson.
We'll see you later.
Jackson. So, how do you feel like what you produced in the end? Are you proud of what you came up with in the time?
Yeah, I mean, if I was listening to it like as a normal person, it would kind of be maybe not what I was expecting, because they're songs that kind of have like a little bit of meaning towards them in like my own style, but they're kind of short too. But I feel like that what I created in the time that I had and the environment I was in with the computer and everything, I felt like it was worthwhile.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions for Jackson this morning about his project or anything else? No?
What was your writing process?
What was my what?
Your writing process.
For the songs?
Yeah.
So what I did was I kind of listened to like I said earlier, the artists that I've listened to on a day in and day out basis. And I kind of gained inspiration. I started writing down notes about the points of these songs that I really felt had a lot of meaning for me. And that's when I started, putting together like chord progressions and beats that I really thought were inspirational to me. And so then I kind of started looking through, and I was looking through the plugins and instruments of, what instruments did I want to use? Did I want to use a bass guitar for the bass line, or did I want to use a piano? And it really just, I kind of had to go through this process. And then I started just experimenting and putting notes in different places. And I was playing them back and starting over and mixing them around and stuff. And then that's when I kind of started to get to where I wanted to be with the 3 songs. And it took a lot of time, but the end product is something that I was really proud of.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks.